Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph Labella.
And I'm Ron Sen. And in the wake of NCAA championship basketball, it's only fitting that we talk a little bit about excellence. I want to say a few words about a book called The Boys in the Boat, which tells the story of the 1936 U.S. Olympic rowing team, which starts about 1930, discussing the life during the Depression by one of the oarsmen, Joe Rance. And it evolves the story, how he developed into a rower, the struggles he had within his family, and how the Depression-era collegiate scene, especially rowing, intermingled with the development of the Olympic movement and the Olympic Games in 1936 in Nazi Germany. So you have an incredible story about a young man whose family leaves him when he's 15 because he's another large mouth to feed that they can't. And he takes all kinds of side jobs, doing incredibly hard physical labor, digging up stumps, chopping down trees, digging irrigation ditches, laying asphalt, working on the Grand Coulee Dam, holding a 75-pound jackhammer, while hanging from a harness off the side of a mountain. But this makes him into an incredible athlete because he's so strong. And then he, along with the other members of his crew, compete on the U.S. scene and then internationally. It's a remarkable book and it really tells a great story about excellence. And excellence is a subject that we're very passionate about. We don't always get there.
Now, did he go meet these other rowers in school, or did he?
He just met the other rowers in school at the University of Washington. In fact, I had sent an email to Mike Neighbors, the University of Washington women's basketball coach. I didn't get an answer yet, and I didn't expect to because he's getting ready for the Final Four. But I was saying, I hope that Washington makes a good showing in the Final Four, just like the 1936 Olympic rowing team.
Yeah, that's something. And he was 15 years old when his family left him?
Yeah, his family just left him. His mother had died, and the new mother, his stepmother, didn't really get along that well with him. But he was a huge kid who ate a lot, and they had 4 other little kids, and they just had to move on. And he really wasn't so much upset about it as this was probably pretty common during that era, that there was just too many mouths to feed, and he was the one who was left out.
And he went to Washington University?
He was able to save money, went to the University of Washington, which East Coast rowing, not surprisingly, with Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Penn, was dominant, but this was this rowing movement, especially with University of Washington and Cal, that would ultimately compete every year for the national championship on the East Coast. They'd have to take a train cross country to go to Poughkeepsie, New York. And then ultimately those teams the winner there was selected to row in the Olympics. And in the Olympics you had every single disadvantage given to the American team as far as when they would row, what lane they'd row in. Not surprisingly, the German team and the Italian team wound up drawing the good lanes, and the U.S. and Great British team got the short end of the stick there. And you know, the coach, what are you going to say? You don't really have any choice in the matter.
A lot of unbelievable stories when you're talking about the Olympics.
Oh, well, that was the Jesse Owens Olympics, and talked about a woman named Leni Riefenstahl, who was in charge of filming it as a propaganda expose for the Third Reich. So she was given a huge number of resources and access, and you can go on the internet and find YouTube videos of the 36 Olympics. It's a remarkable film in black and white of the events.
And then you have the Olympics coming up this summer, which is going to be something. I
Right.
just hope they're straightened out there. I mean, with the problems they had about the disease and all that.
Right. Well, you hope that the Zika virus is a big problem in Brazil, and you have a lot of young people, women who would be of child-rearing age, potentially could have problems if they got ill in that environment.
How is that now?
Well, it's a big problem. Viral illnesses, especially mosquito-borne illnesses, are a considerable problem in the United States with West Nile virus especially being prominent, and the chikungunya virus, which is spreading up from the Caribbean into the southern United States. It's likely going to spread more. And I believe maybe it was the FDA who just approved a new test for Zika virus recently. So it's going to be a big issue in the United States. And the bigger issue, though, as we talk about, is sports is about success. Now, we wanted to talk about that. You probably read about the controversy regarding Dan Shaughnessy and the UConn women's basketball team. Shaughnessy feels that UConn women are bad for basketball because they're too good, they win too much, the games have not been close. UConn's won 121 out of 122 games, I believe, none by less than 10 points. And he says, it's not competition. They win all the time, so it's not fun.
Well, you see people like us, Ron, we went to the practice. I mean, I'm a huge UConn fan.
Right.
I mean, I'm a bigger UConn fan than I am the New England Patriots and the Celtics, where I'm, and I love those two teams. But you went to a practice.
Right.
You're not a huge UConn. You love women's basketball,
Right.
girls basketball. Talk about the practice.
Well, I'll talk about the beginning. Is naturally the girls did stretching, and then they took 2 laps around the court. Now, they had 10 girls practicing that day. Now, one girl cut one corner. And that's, to me, the symbolic of how UConn has been successful. They don't cut corners. You have some teams trying to run plays. UConn is about making plays. Coach Ariema teaches the girls how to play basketball. There's a lot of 2-on-2, 3-on-3 work. They know how to play. They know how to cut. They know how to screen. They know how to slip screens. They know how to make plays that are championship plays. You watch the game, they move the ball, the players move, they get high-quality shots. And yes, they have a lot of terrific players, but they don't have all the talent in the United States. There's plenty of good players around the United States, and how you assemble your talent is just as important as what talent you get.
Right. I mean, you look at the way they practiced, and we were lucky to go to that practice, and over 2 hours and 20 minutes, they were ready to go right at 1 o'clock. We got there early. We were watching them loosen up. Right at 1 o'clock, they got ready to go. They went with the pick and roll, pick and pop, worked on that. The horn goes off. They go right into another drill, constantly going into the drills. And they had the boys there. They were working on how to shut down Ohio State. Ohio State was a high-scoring team. They almost beat South Carolina in their first game. They completely shut them down, beat them 100-54 in that game.
They practice with an extreme tempo. They have incredible understanding of the game, precision, execution. They don't have to make all their shots. They just have to make a significant percentage of quality shots. They have players on the bench who are solid basketball players who don't really get in because they're not, even though they're solid, they're not at the same level as the young ladies who play.
And another thing too, Ron, I mean, they dictate the game through their defense. Their defense dictates the game. They practice on it. They're the best offensive team in the country, but they're also the best defensive team in the country. And when they're not hitting their shots offensively, when they have problems getting into rhythm, I've seen them a few games this year where they had problems on offense getting into a rhythm, their defense carries them.
Well, not only are they the best offensive team in the country, the best defensive team in the country, in the academic rankings of all the teams that made the women's bracket, they were number 1. Stanford was number 2. So they're good on the court and they're good in the classroom. They're quality people. They care about each other. It's no accident that they're successful, and to condemn them because they're successful just shows an incredible ignorance on Shaughnessy's part.
And they're so loved in Connecticut, Ron. I mean, I go on their site every day. I go on their site. I mean, they go to hospitals and the kids can't wait to see them. I mean, they go visit the elderly. They're unbelievable in Connecticut, all right, representing the University of Connecticut. And it's just an unbelievable situation. And it's not for every girl. You know how I am, coaching, you demand. Look at Ariema. He demands 100%, 100% of the time. He says you're on the court for 2 hours. Now you have 22 other hours during the day. You're on the court with me for 2 hours. I expect 100% mentally and physically, and they give it, and they learn that right from the beginning when they come in. The kids learn it when they come visit. I mean, every kid they have Dangerfield, the best point guard in the country, coming in next year. They have Molly Bent from Tabor Academy, from Barnstable. Not listed in the top 100 in the United States coming out of high school. Not listed there. They got Kayla Irwin from Pennsylvania. Not listed in the top 100 coming out of high school. So you got the number 3 player who's the best point guard coming out, and 2 other players who aren't in the top 100 that Oriema loves. Perfect players for UConn. He knows it. One of them's coached by her mother, Irwin, in Pennsylvania, has coached her for 4 years in high school. The other one was coached, and Bent was coached by her father at Barnstable, transferred to Tabor. But those are the players. They know when they come in, they know that they got to be ready to play, and they love the game. So you need players that absolutely love the game, and it's important to them.
All right, we'll talk more about the game itself, but the point is that success is not only a choice, it's a destination that you can only achieve when you're fully committed and willing to make sacrifices that other people are not willing to make. And certainly you read about other programs where, I think it was at, I want to say Nebraska. Now, I'm not,
Yeah, Nebraska had a problem with the coach.
Nebraska's coach just got fired, but there was another coach that came out and said, well, if you girls were out shooting instead of being on social media all day, then maybe you'd be successful.
Yeah, Morgan Tuck, star for UConn. She was injured her sophomore year, but she's going to go into the draft. She had 1 more year of eligibility, but her sister played on another top team, had a terrible experience.
Yeah, and it's difficult. There was an expose in, I think, SI.com. They talked about what number of women's basketball players across the country, Division I, trusted their coach or didn't trust. And 40% of the players said that they didn't trust the coach. One player gave a graphic description, and she said, it's about being a crab in a bucket. You're always trying to get out of the bucket, and you're getting pulled down by the other crabs. It's very competitive. When you go to a school, you don't know necessarily what your opportunity is going to be, because you might have been recruited to be the backup player. You don't know that necessarily. The coach isn't always honest with you, and I believe they have 15 scholarships in women's college basketball, which is a lot when you look at the number of girls that can play. So you have players who are immensely successful in high school. They go with an expectation they're going to play and be successful in college, and the numbers game just shows that's not going to work.
But this is how much Oriema cares about his players. I mean, to him, the key is when they leave UConn, he wants them to be happy. He wants to make sure they got everything they could from him and the program, and they were successful. I mean, that's his goal. That's the pressure that's on him is for the kids that he coaches. But this is a perfect example. There's 15 seconds left in the game. They're up 29. Polito's in the game. She's a senior. Okay, senior walk-on that he gave a scholarship to her and his Dawson or whoever the other, I forget the other name. He gave them a scholarship this year because they've been with the program for 2 years and they've given everything. We saw them at practice. They do whatever they ask them. And Polito's in the game. Most coaches, Oriema, they're going to tell their players don't shoot. But he ordered the point guard to get the ball to Polito. Well, Polito hit the baseline jump shot. That was the biggest thing in the world for you. You saw his face.
Yeah, I saw it.
I mean, it was just amazing. And that's the type of guy Oriema is, and he was so happy that she did that. But he had so much pressure on him because he wanted the girls to leave. Brianna Stewart, Jefferson, and Tuck to leave, with an undefeated season and the 4th championship. It's just amazing because when you look at the classes, Ron, they don't have the #1 class every year.
No, and it's a gross oversimplification to say it's just about talent beating other less talent. And it's like the NBA. The Spurs don't get the first-round draft choice every year. They're drafting at the bottom. But Popovich gets a lot out of the players he has. The players are unselfish. They may not win again this year. Maybe Golden State will run the table again. Who knows? But Golden State's up there every year, and Popovich and his style has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, but one quick thing. Last 7 years, Connecticut's had the #1 recruiting class once, this senior class. They've won 4 championships in a row with this. So in 6 out of those 7 years, there's other schools that had I know Louisville's had one of them, and Louisville got knocked out right away, even though they had a pretty good year. But you look at it, next year, senior class, 1 girl, 32nd in the country in high school coming out. The junior class, 2 girls between 10 and 20. Not one top 10 player. Sophomore class, Samuelson was #1 and Collier was #6.
Well, by no means is it, some people have the attitude, you're the coach, you just roll the balls out there, and if you have good players, you're going to be successful. Maybe at some levels you can, but there are plenty of places where you have great talent, and they don't. I mean, Kentucky has great talent. They didn't win the national championship on the men's side.
And they're going to have so much fun next year, UConn, Oriama, with the team he's got coming back. People think, oh, now they finally lost their top 3 players. What are they going to do now? They're going to have all these other teams.
Well, and speaking of women not getting credit, U.S. women's national soccer team is filing a lawsuit for equal pay. They bring in more money than the men, and they get paid substantially less. There's no justification for it.
Now, that's a disgrace, Ron. We were talking about it earlier. I never watch the men. I always watch the girls when they're on TV. I always watch them because they've a better style of soccer with the girls than with the men. You know, for me, it's not that I love all women's sports. I mean, I love women's basketball is my favorite, but, you know, women's soccer is way better than men's soccer in the United States. For me, I enjoy watching them play.
Well, just they generate the revenue, so why should they get paid less? Well, I guess if you're going to say, well, the men won't play for less, well, all right, then why would anybody watch them if you have a bunch of players who are only concerned about getting paid and not their performance?
Things definitely have to change, especially with women's basketball, the WNBA. The top salary is $105,000. Are you kidding me? I mean, I watch the playoff games. In the stands, some of them are sold out. Others you see 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Well, you can't get enough money to pay them more than $105,000 for the top player. So most of them are going over to Europe and getting $700,000. Or China. One of the players over in China made $650,000 over there.
I think Taurasi was playing in Turkey.
Yeah.
And Turkey's basketball mad. So basketball potentially will be the world's #1 sport eventually. They're not there yet, but there's a lot of interest overseas. Now, they showed some of the former UConn players in the stands, too.
Yeah, they were all there.
Abrasamova, terrific player. You know, so
Bird was there. Moore was there, too. They said
Yeah.
Taurasi was there. I didn't see her.
Dolson was there. I didn't see
Dolson.
Yeah, I didn't see Taurasi
I didn't see my
either.
favorite player, Bria Hartley. She wasn't there. But, you know, you just look at it and you say, it's unbelievable how those players are only making $105,000. Where are the young girls that will love playing basketball? Well, there's tons of them around. I mean, Connecticut's getting a lot.
Well, obviously, you know, it isn't just UConn players that had success. Jen Rosati's been very successful at Hartford. Carla Berube, the coach at Tufts, I believe she's been to the women's final at least 8 once, and this year Tufts went to the women's final in Division III. All right, it's Division III, but it's still very competitive. And now, from my understanding, was that Carla Berube's like a legend in UConn. She was on one of their early championship teams, and the kids grew up watching her, and they want to play for Tufts.
Well, Stevens is she still at Bentley?
Yeah.
And I mean, she's had unbelievable programs too. But I watched the McDonald's All-Star game, the girls, the women's, and then they had the guys on later on. They had the girls on ESPNU and the guys on ESPN. You know, but the girls' game was way better than the boys. I mean, it was unbelievable. This girl Fernandez was going to Texas Christian. Unbelievable. She's shooting three-pointers like Curry from like 10 feet behind the three-point line and burying them. And Dangerfield was in it. The point guard is going to UConn. Now, I saw a lot of talent going to Texas. Cox is going to Texas. Texas has had 2 great recruiting classes now. They gave UConn a pretty good game with 21 points.
There's a lot of terrific talent dispersed through the men's and women's games. Now, I don't understand why some of the men who are coming out for the NBA, you know, the guy averages 6 points and 3 rebounds as a freshman or something, and he's going out for the NBA. We've already seen the James Young story. He's been on the Celtics for 2 years. He can't get off the bench. No. He's not a good total basketball player. Yeah. And what are the Celtics going to do with 4 first-round draft choices this year?
I know. I mean, they're going to make some moves.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. We haven't really talked about East Coast versus West Coast basketball, but in the men's final, terrific game. One of the best college basketball games you're ever going to see. University of North Carolina versus the Villanova Wildcats. As some of you can remember, in 1985, Villanova beat Georgetown in the championship final. An incredible performance. Well, I believe they only missed 2 shots in the second half. There was a player from Wakefield who was a freshman on Villanova at that time, Mark Plansky, and he had played for a state championship team in Wakefield. Jay Wright, the Villanova coach, did a miraculous job. Has good players, but probably nobody in the top first round of the NBA as far as players coming out. Wright's an interesting guy. He sort of has 2 big principles in coaching. Number 1, he says, be respectful in how you carry yourself throughout life and on the basketball court. And 2, be specific. If he tells a player, you got to get back on defense, he gives an exhaustive detail as to what that means. That doesn't mean running back with a player you're covering. It means getting back, sprinting to half court, beating your player to half court, shaping up if you're in tandem or a triangle if you have 3 players, stopping ball penetration, et cetera, et cetera. He's a great teacher, and I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, Massimino, they were interviewing him before the game, and he was talking about the defenses. They're going to give North Carolina big-time problems. They were talking about the mismatches Villanova was going to have against North Carolina on defense. And he says, no, we're not going to have problems. He goes, Coach is going to change things up. He's going to make it look like a zone. When they come up to the front court, they're going to change it up. He's talking about diamonds and everything else. I mean, I was trying to follow him. He said, we're going to double team down low at times. We're going to double team the ball. We're going to pressure the ball with double teams. We're going to just keep really mismatching things for North Carolina. They're going to be seeing one thing, and it's going to be different. Almost remind me of a football team.
Well, one of the Bobby Knight principles was show zone no matter what kind of defense you're going to play. But Villanova did a great job. Offensively, you saw some old school kind of footwork. You saw 7, 8 times where players penetrated into the lane and then spun around to get separation from a taller player and make shots, including Rick Brunson's kid, who made a key shot down the line.
Yeah, you see North Carolina try to impose their will on Villanova a lot of the game, and Villanova wasn't going for it. They just executed so well. I mean, at times you'd see like a mismatch where North Carolina was bigger and stronger, quick at times, and Villanova just thought to execute them. That's how they won the game.
I was just amazed at how patient they were, because sometimes they weren't getting that much going on offense, and they'd be in the last 8, 10 seconds of the shot clock, but then they were able to get enough penetration or penetrate and pitch out, and they made enough shots, so including great play at the end, really well designed, where the inbounder kind of trailed the play up, and he was the one who got the shot. Nobody was even thinking he'd be in the play.
Yeah, they said that. Is it, what does he pronounce his name, Archidiacono? Something like that.
Yeah, it's hard to...
But I mean, he said, he goes, I was looking for the shot, but he played a steady game. Mm-hmm. Jenkins played really good too. They just all played a solid game. They just very well coached. And that's what Massimino said before the game. He says, you know, they're very well coached, and that's why they're going to win the game.
Well, Villanova took better shots. This is an old legendary coach, Pete Newell, says that the goal of basketball is to take more and better quality shots than your opponent. If you do that consistently, you'll be successful. And Villanova didn't force a lot. They really got excellent opportunities.
But you know, it's funny too, as well as Villanova played defensively, they made 2 bad mistakes down the stretch. The one where they got the ball down low to one of their, to their forward, and the Villanova player was playing them on the outside, trying to deny the ball. So the ball went to the inside. The guy gets the ball and banks in a 5-footer for a huge basket. That surprised me with that type of defense. And then going for the steal there when Page hit the.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go for steal in that situation. In that situation, if you're a great defensive team plays their play a straight up, they make sure they have good balance on them.
Well, Marcus Page made a double pump 3, which you could take 50 of those. You'd be lucky to make 2. Really, really tough shot because of the distance involved with 4.7 seconds to go. And then Villanova was able to respond with a game-winning 3. There's a great clip of Charles Barkley. He's broadcasting the game.
That's because of Smith.
With Kenny Smith. Kenny Smith went to UNC. So Barkley's watching, and he's waiting. He's watching a monitor, and then he just jumps up and down. He's pumping his fist, you know, and I'm sure that Kenny Smith is losing his mind there.
Well, a lot of people, I mean, I didn't bet them, but I liked Villanova from the beginning. When people tell me about Kansas and stuff, I said, I've watched Villanova play several games, and I said, they're well coached. You know, I mean, I didn't think of the whole tournament, but I said, I
Right.
like Villanova. But I mean, that was something. That was just an unbelievable game. You know, again, we're up till 1 o'clock watching that game. I think I was up till after
Right.
1.
Well, I have to stay up to watch One Shining Moment, which I heard people on the radio talking about. It's the worst song ever, and it's a waste of time.
Well,
I'm thinking-
Stevens hates it, the coach of the
yeah,
Celtics.
well, I understand why he does, but you know, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. It recaps the whole tournament in 3 minutes. Luther Vandross, what's not to like about Luther Vandross? And just a great moment. I was happy for Villanova, but I like UNC too. I would have been okay with either team winning.
Yeah, Williams, I mean, he's under some pressure there too. You're looking at his program, and he's
Well, they had academic issues about kids taking phantom classes, and obviously Syracuse on the men's side had academic issues too. And you know, the temptation to cheat among these schools is really high.
yeah, and you look at a program like UConn's women's, it's entirely different. I mean, like you said, I mean, they have really good students, and that's very important to the whole, well, the kids as well.
Right. Now, obviously, the UConn game, UConn dominated really from the outset. The game has a different flow to it playing quarters than halves,
Yeah.
which I kind of liked halves better, but now.
Corey Emmer was big in that, to have that change. That was one
Really?
of the things. He was big, huge. 10-second, too.
Right. Well, you get an extra. People don't count enough the final possession of a quarter. We've talked about this before with Melrose against Oliver Ames, but when you have a 6-point swing at either end of the 4 times a game, so if you can control the ball and get the last shot off, that's a tremendous advantage for you. And most coaches and teams, at least at the high school level, don't take advantage of that very well.
Yeah, but you look at this UConn-Syracuse game, I mean, they dictated through the defense. I mean, they hit some key shots, but, you know, it's tough to stop at the UConn team without Samuelson, too.
Well, they said Syracuse wanted to make at least 10 three-pointers a game, which in the first half, I know they only made a couple. And UConn played them tough on the perimeter. They switched out. UConn is so athletic that they can switch out players who are,
And they're long,
you know,
too,
right. A woman like Kia Nurse is 6 feet tall. So for her to switch to somebody else who's 6'2", it's no big disadvantage. Plus, she can jump.
Well, what'd you hear at the practice when we were at the UConn practice when they were scrimmaging against the boys to get ready for, I'll say, what was Ariema getting on Williams and Nurse about? You're not switching properly. And I remember that practice when he's going over with the girls. I said, you've got to communicate the switch. You know, and now, you know, every game, every big game they played in, when they shut teams down, they switch unbelievably, but they're long, too.
Well, and when Golden State lost recently to San Antonio switched everything to put pressure on Curry. He said, well, don't let him take three-pointers 8 feet beyond the arc wide open. Get out there and put ball pressure on him. And even if it was a guy like Aldridge or West, he'd say, I don't care, go out and cover him.
But you know my feeling, like, you know, you're a fan of a team, you get nervous. I mean, the Patriots are playing, at Denver. You're nervous in that game. You want them to go to the Super Bowl so bad. You know, and I'm the same way with UConn. I'm nervous in the games. I want that senior class to end up with 4 championships. You know, and I get nervous for the games. But the one thing that always, I look at them and I say, well, it brings me back to their defense. I said, they're going to shut these teams down. These teams that are playing so well, when they go up against them, that's what gave me the real confidence.
Well, they have steady players. When Syracuse went on a 16-0 run, which is almost unheard of against UConn, you still had the feeling like, well, that UConn will make a couple of hoops here, break the run, and
Freshman
stretch
Collier.
it out. Yeah, so Nafisha Collier made a nice play. There were a lot of big plays. Jefferson made a three-pointer just before the half. That was a big play. And
they were playing without Samuelson, who's going to be the best player in the country next year.
well, right now, that assuming her foot heals up
I know.
okay, you know.
Do you know which bone was it, Ron?
I don't know which bone.
It's not one of the big bones.
I'm guessing it was the outside bone on the foot, just because that's where a lot of people have trouble. So,
does that repeat? I mean,
well, look at Yao Ming.
I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, she's a talent, and she could be You talk about great players.
Well, I'm sure she's getting the best treatment you can get.
But you know, you look at, but for any kids that are playing defense, it's all about defense, defense. And next year, they're going to be the best defensive team in the country again. And so that's why I'm confident that they can win a 5th in a row.
Well, we'll cover some other stories as well. The Patriots rather, have a backup defensive back who has been called up to the U.S. national rugby team. Nate Ebner, who played a lot of rugby on the U.S. junior team as a young player before he was at Ohio State and played with his dad. He's trying out for the Olympic rugby team. Part of that relates to the fact that his dad was killed, was in an assault at his garage. So Ebner's doing this partly for himself and partly in memory of his dad, whom he played a lot of rugby with growing up.
I'm surprised that I know why Belichick's letting him do it. One of the big things. Because he's not one of the key players in the team.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was one of the key players in the team, there's no way he'd let him do it.
Well, I don't know how people don't get hurt all the time in rugby.
Broken noses and everything.
Actually, the hotbed of rugby in the United States is University of California. They have a coach named Jack Clark who's won multiple championships, and he's one of the most admirable coaches in sports. So if you ever want to read anything about a coach who knows both psychology and his sport, Jack Clark is a go-to area to look at. Now, there's a lot of talk about whether Kevin Durant might be thinking about coming to the Celtics. Now, the reality is he can get a lot more money if he stays in Oklahoma City, and I don't know if money is his first priority or where he'll end up. He grew up in the Baltimore area, so he's used to lousy weather. So.
Well, he said he likes Boston. He likes the fans in Boston. One good thing is that Perkins played with him several years, and Perkins loved Boston and they were talking to Perkins the other day about it. And he says, we've had a lot of good conversations. Durant really likes Perkins a lot.
Perkins says he's sworn to secrecy about what Durant's thinking.
But I mean, I don't know. You know, it would be something. You know, there's some people saying a lot of these guys want to play for Stevens. Do they really respect him as a coach? So we'll see. But it's going to be difficult.
I'm thinking he's going to end up in Oklahoma City. And people talk all the time like, well, it's only if you have a lot of money, what's the difference if you have an extra $20 or $30 million? Well, we're never going to know that, but my guess is that if you have a lot of money, another $20 million is kind of important to you.
I'll tell you one thing, though, Ron. We're looking at Pierce, Allen, and Garnett leaving, and we're saying, well, is this going to be another 20 years where we're going to have we're not going to be excited? I mean, the real fans are excited about the Celtics now, and they actually have a superstar.
Yeah,
Isaiah's getting better and better. He's a superstar, Ron.
He set the franchise record for most games scoring at least 20 points in the game. Some of the NBA pundits are now ranking him as the 14th best player in the NBA. He does it day in and day out. I don't know how he doesn't get killed the way he drives in there. But he scores, he makes the players around him better. He's decent defensively. There aren't that many guards that have been posting him up. So you can say like all you want. Well, other guards can post him up. Well, then they should do that then.
The one player potentially who could become a star, who's the one player in the Celtics beside him that potentially could be a star in the next couple of years?
I know you say Olenek. I just don't see it.
All right, who else?
I like Crowder a lot.
Yeah, he's a very good basketball player. He's never going to be a star.
Please don't tell me Rozier.
Rozier. Potentially, if he can hit a shot, they say he's getting better at that.
He's got to get better.
He is the quickest guy in the NBA. If you think of him,
he's one of the best rebounding guards I've seen for his size.
But Ron, think of him taking the ball to the hoop with confidence. Right now, he's trying to get his game together. It's his first year. He's not as confident as he will be in 2 years if he gets playing time. Think of him taking the ball to the hoop and finishing. He will be unbelievable. He's quicker than Isaiah.
He's really fast.
He's got ups. He stays up in a year.
He's fast.
Potentially, I said.
Well, we'll see.
Not smart, that's for sure.
No. Well, smart is impactful, but his shooting right now is miserable.
And I told you one thing. Olenek's got to go to another team. He's never going to reach his potential with the Celtics because he doesn't get enough chance to reach his potential. I mean, I've seen him play when he's got it going. He doesn't get it going enough in games because he doesn't handle the ball enough. with all those other
Well,
players in the team.
Philadelphia, who gets the #1 draft choice every year, fired their general manager, which is about time.
Maybe we'll get Okafor. Maybe we'll
Well,
make a deal.
you know, that's what I was thinking. Philadelphia has to trade Okafor or Noel. They have to.
Maybe Smart in Olenek, in their #1 pick or Dallas's #1 pick for Okafor.
Well, Philadelphia's got to make a deal because they don't know what they're doing, and they got two big guys that is kind of redundant. There's talk that obviously Okafor had issues. He had issues in I believe it was a fight outside a bar. He was driving his car 100 miles an hour. So he's not very mature, which is not surprising. He's a young player. Noel, good shot blocker, can score a little bit. How his game understanding, there's room for improvement.
All right, how about this move? How about Smart and Brooklyn's #1 pick for Okafor? Would you make that deal?
Yeah, I would make that deal. I would definitely make that deal.
You know, they got a lot of options, the Celtics.
Well, the Celtics are going to be in the playoffs. The question is, where do they finish up, 3, 4, 5, or 6? Now,
You'd like to see them win a series and give Toronto a good series.
they have Atlanta, Charlotte, and I think Miami left on the schedule.
They should be able to win all those games. The only game on the road they have is Atlanta.
Right. Atlanta seems to be tough for them for some reason.
Yeah, but I think they match up good with those teams. The teams they don't match up well, the team they don't match up well is Toronto.
Yeah, they have trouble against
Toronto and Cleveland's going to be tough, of course, if they're healthy.
Right. So, anyway, I'm going to the game on Monday. So,
Which game's that?
Charlotte.
Got good tickets?
Yeah, they're good.
You in the box?
No.
Your sister give them to you?
No, I got them from a local person. So looking forward to that a lot. The Stevens, there's some movement for him to be coach of the year.
Can't be.
I don't know. So Toronto's coach might deserve it.
Hey, you know what I finally heard? Remember I'm always complaining about Popovich blowing that?
Yeah.
They're talking on EEI the other night. I love Hawley. To me, Hawley's by far is the best on radio. Either I'm 98.5 or EEI. He's just so good, and I love the way he thinks. He talked, first person since me, talked about that. They say, everybody says how great Popovich is, and he is a great coach. This is Hawley. He goes, but I still can't get over when they blew it to Miami. And he changed the whole history of the game in there, where Allen ends up winning second. On that play there, he goes, he said the same thing I said.
That Duncan's not in the game. So
He wasn't in there twice, and it really changed history when you really think about it in the NBA because of that one move. He says, what's Duncan doing sitting on the bench when you know that the key is on a three-point shot is the offensive team getting the rebound and kicking it, and they don't have Duncan in there, and Bosch out jumps 3 guys for the rebound, when if Duncan was in there, he would have got the rebound. He says, I can understand when Bosch wasn't in there, when Bosch was out of the game on the first one.
Well,
But it's the first person that said it.
Open corner threes are deadly in the NBA. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Hockey fans are the most loyal fans there are. The Bruins have lost 8 games out of 10, are playing Detroit tonight, and if they lose this game, heads are going to roll. Julian, maybe Neely.
Not nearly.
Well, the Bruins fans have got to be despondent at what's been happening lately.
I don't know enough about the Bruins. I mean, as much as I know about the Celtics or the Patriots or the Yankees, but I watch the Bruins and I root for them. And I say, geez, I see them sometimes and I say, they have an excellent future. They're young. They skate way better than they did last year. It seems to me defense is weak. Tuukka Rask I don't like. I didn't like him from the beginning when they Boychuk trade. I said it should have been Tuukka Rask. He's not good enough to win a Stanley Cup with. I said he'll make more money than Boychuk. You'll get more players if you trade him. But Rask is not a winner. He's a baby. Goals have been going by him because he's upset at his defensive. He's upset at the defense. If you watch many of the games and see some of the goals that have gone in.
Well, he's very vulnerable up high. He's a goalie who plays.
He's a baby, Ron.
Well, anyway, it's going to be revisionist history. At the deadline, the issue was, did they trade Louis Erickson and try to get some more draft choices or maybe a serviceable defenseman for the future? They don't, so they're going to lose Erickson. They have too many overpaid players who are not getting it done, Rask being one, Chara being another. And I just feel bad for the fans because the Bruins fans are so loyal, and they're going to, in all likelihood, end up out of the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Well, maybe a miracle will happen. Maybe they'll beat Detroit tonight and win their next game, and hopefully Philadelphia has a game, at least a game in hand, I
They have a
believe,
game
and
in
they're
hand.
tied. But what if they beat Detroit? Aren't they tied with Detroit?
Then they'd be tied with Detroit, but Detroit has the tiebreaker.
And they go blow the game the other night. Unbelievable.
Well, it's sad for the Bruins fans. Now, it's baseball season. The Red Sox playing in miserable Cleveland with the opening day cold out, snow out, and then they split. They blew the game last night. I don't have high hopes for the Red Sox because I think the pitching isn't good. I think they miss Carson Smith a lot. I don't think Uehara is going to hold up. Tozawa already, I mean, small sample size. It's too soon to make.
Napoli last night.
Too soon to make a lot of judgments, but I'm still worried about the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at them. I mean, I'm not excited about baseball right now. I mean, you look at the games and it's raining out, it's freezing. I mean, you got to wait till it gets warm, and that's when things really start going. Right now, teams are just hoping to win. I think, look at the Yankees last night.
The player I
Look
feel
at Castro.
the player I feel worst for is Bogarts. The guy grows up in Aruba. He's used to 82 degrees a day, and then he just got to come back from Florida and play in 32 degrees in Cleveland for a couple days.
For some reason, I'm not as impressed with Bogarts as everybody else is.
Well,
I'm just not impressed with
he's
him.
not going to be their best player. Betts is going to be the best player. And I'm still optimistic that Jackie Bradley's going to hit enough to make his glove show up.
How about Ortiz?
I know, he's got 2 home runs already. Must be those vitamins.
But Pedroia's going to have a big year. I'm predicting Pedroia, if he stays healthy, he'll have the best year out of everybody.
I was going to say, if you stay healthy. I'm not a big Swihart guy. I like Vasquez because I think, as a former pitcher, I value the defensive catcher more than the potentially offensive catcher.
Yeah, that's where it starts. I mean, Swihart, he's going to hit. You know, he's going to get some big hits for you. But Vasquez is the play. I mean, you want that defensive catcher back to it where no one's going to try to steal on you. I mean, he's unbelievable. And that's where you start. As a catcher, you want someone like him and not Swihart. But who knows? Maybe when he's still not 100% healthy. So.
No, I don't think he's played more than a couple days in a row, and he's still coming back from Tommy John surgery. Hanley Ramirez has looked okay so far. Since talk about managed expectations, I think the Red Sox fans' expectations for Hanley are low, but maybe his mood is such that he's back in the infield and he can feel the ground ball.
I don't know, when it comes down to it, it's all mental, Ron. If he gets into it and really wants to be a good first baseman, he could be one of the best in baseball. He played shortstop all those years. If he really wants to be and show people, he's got the talent to be one of the best.
Probably the most interesting story in baseball in the first week is the San Diego Padres. The Padres are 0-3 and haven't scored a run. No team in the history of baseball has gone scoreless in their first 3 games. It's not easy to do.
They went up against that Dodger pitching staff, though.
That's
true. That's tough, especially the first game against Kershaw. But the Dodgers should have a real good year. I mean, there's so many good pitchers in baseball nowadays.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Price. He didn't really have his best stuff, but he was able to.
Betts made that unbelievable play.
Right, that saved him.
He's going to be unbelievable in Fenway with that right field. You know, Bradley in center, him in right, and who in left. I mean, it's going to be Young, Holt, and I don't even know if Castillo is going to play.
Well, it'll be interesting to see about the psyche of the team. Buchholz, I know you feel about Teixeira sort of the way I feel about Buchholz. I just think that Buchholz has no heart whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that because it's a contract year, he'd show up and actually care, but I guess he doesn't have to.
Well, you look at both of those players. I mean, I like Teixeira. He just gets injured too much. Teixeira stays healthy. He's a 40 home run hitter.
Yeah, but you say he's not clutch.
Well, yeah, he doesn't hit in the big situations, but and you look at Buchholz, the talent he has. Both of the guys, you look at both of them, and you say to yourself, they both should be 2 of the stars in the league, and they're not. you know.
Well, some injuries, like Teixeira's had hand injury. You're not going to be able to prevent certain types of injuries. You can work out, but you're not going to prevent hand and wrist stuff.
How did he break his bone though? And he broke his bone with a ball. He was swinging a foul ball, hits him in the leg, and he breaks his bone.
I don't know. Anything can happen in baseball, but and then we'll see. I don't like the Red Sox team the way it's currently constructed. I don't know what I'm looking for.
I don't like anything about baseball right now. I think they just start too early. I can't get into it.
The other thing is, why aren't they playing the games in the dome stadiums and the warm weather places? They could do that for the first week. It's not or the first 10 days. It's not the end of the world.
I just get a bad feeling during this time of year. Baseball is just.
Well, you watch basketball. Basketball is fast. It's continuous action. Baseball, you can paint your house while you're watching a game.
But I love watching baseball when it's hotter, like it's in the 80s, and I'm watching a baseball game. Or you're going down the park at nighttime, it's a warm night, and they're playing baseball. But when you go by a field and it's 30-something degrees.
Well, growing up, you go to the beach, you have the ball game on the radio.
Oh, that was what memories.
It's good, but you wouldn't listen to a basketball game under those circumstances.
And who do you know? Coleman, the announcer? Coleman.
Ken Coleman.
Laying there at the beach with when you have your little high-five.
Well, it's always football season, and the Patriots continue to make moves. I think the big move, what would you say is the number one move they made in the offseason?
Oh, Bennett, I would say.
Yeah, Martellus Bennett, getting the second tight end.
Maybe McClellan, too.
Yeah.
Hogan.
Oh, right, but where do you see them?
Bennett's the key.
The vulnerable spots are tackle, because you have Solder coming back from surgery, Vollmer kind of always hurt, and then running back. I don't really know who the running back is right now. Can you trust Dion Lewis?
Well, Dion Lewis, you hope, stays healthy. It's going to be tough for him to stay healthy. But you need a runner who can run. They don't have a runner. They haven't had a runner in 2 years that can run. Ridley was a good runner. Vereen wasn't bad, but Ridley was a good runner.
Ridley signed in Detroit.
Yeah.
Former Patriot general manager.
People say running backs nowadays are overrated. They need a good running back, a guy that can get hit. When things are tough, a guy that just hits the hole hard, gets that extra 2 yards. They don't have that. Lewis could do it, even at his size, but he's going to get hurt if
you're always figuring out the competition. The Colts were horrible last year. Will they be better this year? Probably. They can't be as bad as they were. Obviously, Denver, we don't know what the quarterback situation is. They want Kaepernick to take a pay cut. It's, again, the example of Kaepernick's making $11 million. Somebody wants him to take $7 million. He's a young guy. Oh, yeah, it's only $4 million. I don't know people who walk away from $4 million.
Why didn't they take Fitzpatrick?
That seems like the logical move.
He'd be way better than who they had last year. Fitzpatrick has experience. He's a good quarterback. Plays great at times, but not a great quarterback. With Denver's defense, he'd be the perfect quarterback.
You didn't have to win games. Peyton Manning didn't win the Super Bowl. He was out there, and the defense won the Super Bowl. He kept the
Patriots in that game. They should have beat the Patriots by 3 touchdowns the way the Patriots were going with their offense and the way they were giving the ball up. But the reason why that game was close was because Manning missed 2 touchdown passes with receivers that were wide open.
Well, if Carolina had been even semi-competent when Manning fumbled the ball twice down the stretch, they would have been able to come back and potentially be in the game. But Carolina kind of choked.
But I tell you, again, last year the Patriots had it, but, it started with Hoppers dropping the punt, from there, blowing games. They should have been the Super Bowl champs. You really look at the Patriots. The championships they've won, 2 of them, they got lucky. They've been unlucky 3 times. The 2 Giant games, they were unlucky this year, but they had a lot of injuries. And the game when Manning went to the Super Bowl and beat Chicago, they should have been there. They should have won the Super Bowl.
4th and 2.
Yeah. And they got the first down.
Well, yeah, they didn't have enough defense, and balance-wise, they're loading up this year. They should have a lot of depth.
They got to stay healthy. If that offensive line stays healthy, that's going to be the key. And their star players, like Gronk's going to stay healthy, Edelman,
Brady.
Brady. Yeah. If they stay healthy, they have a very good shot at winning. That's all you want as a fan run.
Right. Yeah. Right. You want to have a chance. Now, other teams, Kansas City, potentially they're pretty good last year. I don't know if they've done anything to strengthen themselves. I don't think the Ravens can be as bad as they were last year.
Yeah, but those teams can't beat the Pats. Those teams have no chance of beating the Patriots. I mean, Cincinnati has talent, but they, what happens to them every year. And Denver has that defense. I mean, you have to, even though you don't know who's going to be a quarterback, they have that defense. And they lost a couple of players, but they still have the strong players.
Well, last night you coached, I watched the middle school teachers play against the middle school boys and girls. And it's, first of all, it's not life or death. Everybody gets that. But it was a good example of the difference between people who knew how to play together, pass the ball, cut, get open shots, get easy shots, and people who were kind of standing around watching. And none of those middle school players had played together as a group, boys and girls, but they just mostly watched and threw up long shots, and they were totally intimidated by the size of the middle school teachers.
Yeah, what I remember is when my daughter Amanda played in that the players against students against teachers. But in that game, she was a senior in high school.
Yeah, sure.
I forgot that. These kids are 8th graders going up against men who are banging the boards.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And running full speed.
I played when I was in my mid-20s against the Patriots in a basketball game over in Winchester. And, Brian Dowling tried to knock me into the second, the stratosphere going in for a layup. But, that's what you expect. You're playing professional football players. There's going to be contact. Yeah. That's how they play. And, younger players, you have to learn how to be aggressive no matter who you're playing. That to me, that was one of the lessons. And the game's about passing and cutting. We say that to people all the time. You can't stand around and be successful in basketball.
Yeah, and plus we had 28 plays.
Yeah, well, it seemed like there were about 50 out there.
we just put them in numbers. 5, we separate them. You're 1, and don't forget your number, because if you forget your number, you're not getting in the game.
Well, it was a great crowd there. It was
a
very large
crowd.
And there's only a very low admission fee, which is good, and hopefully they raised some money for the student council, and everybody seemed to be having fun.
Yeah, and the coach of the 7th grade boys is a great guy.
Ted.
Ted, he's super. He really impressed me before the game when I was talking about the UConn girls and he watched the game. That was impressive because most people I talk to, although I have about 8 people now at the courthouse who watch the UConn girls play now because of me. They never watched them before. But Ted watched them and he knows all about them. So he's a really good guy.
Well, we're moving into a good time of the year with the NBA playoffs, and obviously we don't know the seeds yet in the East. I think that Toronto, I don't know if they can beat Cleveland. I mean, if that's who it is in the East. And in the West, San Antonio, I don't think has the staying power because they're so old to be able to beat.
Well, they got Aldridge now, and they got Leonard. So yeah. I mean, I don't know. Golden State. I don't think Golden State should go for the record. I think Golden State should start resting. They're losing the edge a little. I mean, I would rest the players and forget about going far because. Well, tonight they're playing at home against San Antonio.
I know they have 2 games left with San Antonio.
I don't know if they're away at San Antonio, but tonight's going to be the key. If they beat San Antonio, you may see them go for it because they're going to be resting, Popovich.
Well, they got 9 losses right now.
Yeah, if they get one more, they'll tie it.
Right, and they've got to win out to set the record.
But I mean, they were talking about that when I was coming home last night at 2 in the morning. I was listening to one of those shows.
I think the crazy talk is when you hear this Scottie Pippen saying, "Well, I just totally shut down Curry." It's like, come on. Scottie Pippen, terrific player, Hall of Fame player, great defender, but it's not that easy to just shut down one guy.
No one can shut him down, and Golden State's not going to shut him down. They didn't in that game. They beat him.
Well, what did Pippen said? We would have swept Golden State. I don't know who would win, but I don't think either team would sweep the other.
Michael Jordan. I mean, Jordan. Michael would have swept them, not him. I mean, Pippen was a good all-around player, but you have the greatest player to ever play the game next to Bill Russell.
Okay. Other things in coaching. What do you see as the most important job of the coach?
You have the players.
It's different, but with younger players than the NBA. I mean,
I think with younger players, I think if you let the kids know that you really care about them, and the parents know, because their parents are big too in regard to this. Parents have got to understand. If you let them know you really care and you want the best for them, I mean, they'll take it. I mean, as long as you don't go out in the court, and I mean, you know how I am, but they'll take it because they know you care and you want them to become the best. I think that's good. Trust. You know, if they trust you, you know, I mean, they're going to
well, a coach who fell, in my estimation, during the postseason was Krzyzewski. They lost to Oregon. Fine, Oregon's a good team. And after the game, Krzyzewski supposedly went up to one of the Oregon players and said, "What you did with making a three-point shot down at the end was classless." And then when they interviewed Krzyzewski, he said, "I never said that." Well, he did say that. So, you know, first of all, I like what Auriemma said. He said, "Well, I worry about my team. I don't talk to the players on the other team." But if you happen to say to another player on the other team, "Don't do that, that was classless," at least own up to it. You know, then it just ends up, you look dumb.
You know, I'm a big Duke fan too. I mean, I love UConn girls. I like the Duke boys. But Krzyzewski, he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy.
I think he's just losing it now.
No, I mean, you don't lie like that. I mean, number one, you don't say anything to them. The way I am, I hear my parents say if teams are still pressing us and they're ahead, you know, I don't want them saying anything. You know, it's up to us to break the press. Let them keep pressing.
I never felt bad, and I've lost high school games by 50 points. It's not the other team's job to protect my feelings. It's my job to keep them from scoring.
But I think a lot like, maybe because the reason why I like Auriemma so much is I think like he does. You know, you worry about how your team is playing. You don't care about the score. Like he'll win by 60 because his girls are out there to entertain the fans, people are watching the game, to play the best of their ability. And, you know, you want your team, like I don't even look at the score. Like there have been games this year where we've been up 30.
Well,
but you want them to keep playing the game the right way.
I think as a coach, what I focus on is what does my team need right now? You know, do they need inspiration? Do they need a rest? Do they need a day off? Do they need a timeout? Do they need a good inbounds play or a sideline play? Whatever. So if you're always thinking about what my team does now, what they need now, while you're being supportive, fair, respectful to the players, like I'm honest to tell a player who I think you can give more. I think you can be a good player, but you just have to give more.
Right. I believe if you feel a player and you know a player is not giving 100% out there, you let them know it. I don't care if other people hear you, as long as you're not, you know.
Well, if you're not persecuting the kid,
bad to
right?
them.
You can't be persecuting any player, but you want every player to be able to reach their potential. And some players, they need constant patting on the back, and other players, they need a little bit of a push to get them going more. And you can give that to a teammate as well.
But you look at groups. The last group we had, the group
It's in high school.
Yeah, the junior class. They're going to be seniors next year. I mean, that group there was an excellent group. I mean, they reached their potential. They were playing great. They get into high school and things change. You don't have as many players like other sports or whatever. But in middle school, they were one of the best middle school teams around. Mm-hmm. They reached their potential. We put them in that varsity league before they went into high school, and they won it against AAU varsity teams. You know, they reached their potential, the players. And then you get some, you know, this group here. Some of them reached their potential and some didn't. I got to be honest, when it's all said and done, I look at it when I'm on the way home and I said, and I said to myself, we just didn't get where I thought we would get to with this team. Even though we won tournaments, we played some big games, I didn't feel good about getting my team where I should have gotten them.
We did well, but we need to be able to compete better against teams that are physically more dominant and bigger, taller, stronger than we are. We don't have that, so we have to figure out a workaround. So we need to shoot better, we need to pass better, and we need to be able to at least compete on the boards. You've got to be able to get at least 20% of the offensive rebounds and at least 75% of the defensive rebounds, and that's a real struggle for us right now.
But the two, Ron, as they get older, like this group I have is going into high school, the progression needs to be going in the right direction. If the progression continues, then it could be a good group up there.
Yeah.
They could be very successful, but it all depends how the progression goes. And again, if it's positive and the kids really working their game, and I talk to them, I'm going to be seeing them again next week, and that's the one thing I'm going to tell them, and they know how I feel. Keep working. If you love the game, keep working at it, and they'll get there because they're ready to compete against most of the high school teams.
I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph Labella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.